Hi, I'm Emma, and Slow Flow is one of my favorite classes to teach at Queen Street Yoga. I hope you enjoy this little slow flow sequence to follow along with at home. You don't really need any props to practice this sequence, but if you do have a strap, it might be helpful. You could also use a bathrobe tie or a scarf. And we'll use blocks maybe for a couple poses, but again, if you don't have them, no need. Grab your strap and we'll start lying down on the back. So find a comfortable place to lie down. You can walk your feet a little bit away from your hips and decide if you want your feet a little closer to each other or a little farther away. And then the whole purpose of this pose is just to check in. This is called constructive rest. I love that name. By resting, something's being made. So take a few moments here just to check in with your breath. And try to experiment throughout class with breathing in and out through your nose. If that becomes difficult or uncomfortable for any reason, just breathe whatever way is comfortable. But starting here, notice how it might feel to breathe in and out through your nose, and where you can feel the movement of your breath. Let your feet and your hips, your shoulders soften towards the floor. And then relax the muscles of your jaw and your face. Take another few breaths here. Just seeing where you're at before you begin moving. It can be interesting to also check in at the end. Maybe let your knees swish a little side to side. And then tuck your right knee in towards your body. Reach your left leg forward, and you can hold your right knee with your hands. And if at any point in a couple of these lying down movements, it's hard for you to hold your leg, you can use your strap almost to extend the reach of your arms. So hands around the knee or strap around the knee. Take a couple of breaths here and gently draw your knee towards your chest. Let's try the other leg. Tuck your left knee in, switch your hands or the strap to your other leg, reach your right leg forward. And just take 3 or 4 breaths here. Noticing how your hip feels in this position. And then go back to your first side. This time, hold the back of your thigh with your hands, or again, use the strap to extend the reach of your arms. Reach your right heel up towards the ceiling. And then bend your knee, pull your heel down towards the floor. Try this movement of straightening and bending your leg 6 or 7 more times. And your leg doesn't have to be straight up in the air. Maybe your foot is further forward, closer to your other leg. The next time your heel comes up into the air, point and flex your foot a few times. Just see what you notice of your calf and your shin muscles moving. Switch to your other leg, strap or hands behind your left leg. Bend your left knee, and then reach your heel up towards the ceiling. You might feel this in the back line of your leg. There, some of your hamstring muscles, which are on the back of your thigh. Others might feel it in the hip. Just see what sensations come up for you. Reach your heel up towards the ceiling, point and flex your foot a few times. What sensations are happening there? This is one of the ways we can explore our bodies, just following sensation as we practice. Release your leg down. You can move the strap off to one side and then roll to one side. Take a moment there and then push into your hands. Come up to sit. We'll do a few things from a table pose, cat and cow. So come onto your hands and knees. If you're on a harder surface or your mat isn't that thick, maybe you take a towel or a blanket, put it underneath your knees. And then from here, start to move your spine back and forth. So you can imagine you have a tail lifted up and then look forward. And then round your back, look towards your knees. Try that a few more times. Noticing what you can feel about the notice. Notice what you can notice about your spine. Okay. And then from here, widen your knees, bring your toes to touch, sit your hips back, and either rest your forehead on the mat, or stack your palms or your fists under your forehead. So if your head is dangling away from the floor, give your forehead something to rest on. Check in with your breathing again here. Where do you notice your breath moving in your body? And how does it feel to breathe in and out through your nose? Again, if it's not comfortable to breathe through your nose, just find a breath that is comfortable. And come back up into a table pose. And let's just move our shoulder blades a little bit. So see if you can keep your elbows straight, but squeeze your shoulder blades towards your spine. And then widen your shoulder blades away. Do that a few more times. Notice how I'm not rounding or arching my back here. I'm just sliding my shoulder blades in towards my spine and then away from your spine, my spine. See how that feels for you. Let's try a tiger pose. Press into your hands, widen your shoulders a little bit, and then reach your left foot behind you. See if you can give your ankle a little swirl in space, and then flex your foot, reach your heel away from you. Lift your ribs up away from the mat, reach your right arm forward. Maybe you hold for a moment here. And if balance feels doable today, you can tuck your elbow and knee towards you, underneath you, and then reach back up. Exhale to tuck in. Inhale to reach up. And this elbow pulling action reminds me of when I was in grade 5 and I would go, yes! So if you want to do that, or just be reminded of that, you can. Bring your hand and knee back down to the mat. Reach your right leg back. Give your ankle a little circle, or just point and flex your foot. And then reach your opposite arm forward. If your ribs are dropping down towards the mat, see if you can draw your front ribs up away from the floor. And then exhale to tuck your elbow and knee in. Inhale to reach back up. And do a few more on this side. And then bring your hand and knee down. Sit back onto your heels. Just give your wrists a little circle. Let's try downward dog next. From a table pose, walk your knees back a couple of inches, curl your toes under, lift your hips up. And with a little bit of a bend in your knees, lift an imaginary tail up to tilt your pelvis down and let your spine flow forward. Take a couple more breaths here. And maybe you just stay here for a couple of breaths, or move forward to a plank pose, like the top of a push-up, and then back into a downward facing dog. You might do that 3 or 4 more times. And another option to try would be having the knees down, hips back, and then coming forward into a kneeling plank. This just takes some of the weight out of the hands. So if your wrists want a bit of a break, this is a nice alternative. Maybe one more, and then sit back into a child's pose. This time try bringing your knees towards one another, rounding your back over your legs. Again, if your head doesn't reach the floor, bring the floor to your head with either your hands stacked or fists stacked. Come on up to standing, and let's get into the legs a little bit more. Let's try a chair pose. Unfortunately named because there is no chair. You have to imagine it. So make your feet parallel about 6 inches apart. And then lift an imaginary tail up, sit your hips back, and reach your arms forward. Hug your legs, hug your arms towards each other, and beam up through your head. Let's take another 2 breaths here. And then push into your feet, exhale, and fold down towards your legs. Maybe you touch the floor with your hands. It's fine to bend your knees to get your hands down. You push into your feet, stand up or reach your arms up, and then release your arms back down. Let's do a couple more chair poses with an alternative to turn it a bit more into a squat. So take your feet wider apart, turn your toes out a little, and then start to bend your knees, sit your hips down towards your heels. Maybe your hips come close to the ground, or maybe they're higher up, and then push into your feet to stand up. Try between 5 and 10 more, however far down you're going. See if you can inhale on the way down, and then exhale to come back up. A few more times. Push into your heels to stand. And see if you can tone your bum and use your bum muscles to lift you back up to standing. Maybe one more. Good. Bring your feet towards one another. You might shake your legs out a little bit, or even bounce into your knees a touch. Let's step the feet wide apart for a moment. Bring your feet parallel to one another, and then hug your legs towards each other. Warrior two. Turn your right toes to face away from you, your left toes to face in a bit, and try to line your right foot up with the arch of your back foot. Bend into your right knee, reach your arms out wide. Hug your legs strongly towards one another, lift up through the top of your head, and then look forward at your right fingertips. Take another 2 breaths here. Lean forward, bring your forearm to your thigh, and try to reach your left arm alongside your ear. Make a long line from your left foot all the way up through your left fingertips. Push into your feet, stand up to center. Turn your right toes to face forward. Turn your left toes away. And then line left heel up with the center of your back arch. Turn your right toes in it a little bit. Bend into your knee and reach your arms out wide. I love Warrior Two and Side Angle Pose, these two poses, because they warm up the legs really quickly and they're quite simple to get into. You might even do these with a much narrower stance. See what makes sense for you. Bend into your knee, lean forward, bring your forearm to your thigh, extend your right arm alongside your ear. Keep pulling your feet towards one another to engage your legs, and you might try to turn your chest a little up towards the ceiling. Take another breath here. And then press into your feet, stand up, reach your arms out wide, turn your toes to face forward, and then walk your feet back towards each other. If you like, give your knees a little shake, or your whole body a little bit of a bounce, almost like your head bobbles like a bobblehead doll. All right, let's try a balancing pose, Warrior Three. You can turn to face the short edge of your mat, lean onto your right foot, and reach your left foot back behind you. Start to tip your upper body forward as your back leg comes away from the mat, and hug your back leg strongly in towards center. Not so much that it crosses over the center line and goes behind your other leg, but just so it's engaged in space and not kind of floppy. Maybe you're more upright, your Warrior Three is more diagonal. Or maybe your leg and your torso make a more parallel line with the floor. Press into your bottom foot, reach your head and your lifted heel away from one another. And then stand back up to center. Again, if it feels good to shake your legs or bounce into your knees, try that. Let's do the second side. Lean onto your left foot. Pick your right leg up. Kick it out behind you. And try to keep your torso and your leg in the same line. So you're not lifting your leg or lifting your chest and making a V, but you're trying to have them sense each other, staying in a line. Hug your back leg in towards center. Try to reach your heel, lifted heel and head away from each other. And maybe hover here for another moment. Ooh, I had to touch the wall there. And then stand back up. Bounce into your knees if it feels good. And then here's a place where you might use blocks, or you might use just something to elevate your hands away from the floor. We'll do a wide-legged forward fold, and for some people, having something under the hands can be helpful. So take your feet wide apart. One way to measure would be to reach your arms wide, take your feet as wide as your outstretched wrists. But if that feels too wide, narrow them a little bit. From here, bend your knees, imagine you have a tail, and lift your imaginary tail up. And then hinge at your hips, come forward. You might bring your supports under your hands, blocks, or maybe a couple of books. And then hug your feet towards one another, almost like you're trying to pull them in. Press down into your heels, reach your head forward away from your hips. Maybe you have enough hip mobility to bend your elbows, lower a little closer to the mat. And let's just take 3 or 4 breaths here. To come out of this pose, bring your hands to your hips, lift your elbows and shoulders, and lead with your chest to come up. Walk your feet back towards each other. And again, if you want to shake your knees, bounce, that can often feel nice after a bit of a stretch or a strengthening movement. We're going to end with a squat pose. So you can take your feet a little bit wider than your hips, and then bend into your knees, sit your hips down towards your heels. It's fine if your heels come off the floor. If it feels unsteady to be kind of hovering on the fronts of your feet, you can roll up a towel or a blanket and put that under your heels. If your elbows can reach inside your knees, press your knees and elbows into each other, reach your head up. And just notice how this Malasana squat pose feels. Bring your hands to the floor, lift your hips, come into a forward bend, turn your toes forward. And as long as you know it's fine for your spine, just round into your back and roll yourself slowly back up to standing. Give your shoulders a roll backwards a few times, and a roll forwards a few times. And then finally, come to lie on your back. And either with blocks or with some support, maybe books, we're going to support the outsides of the legs in this pose called butterfly. So my feet are touching, the bottoms of my feet are touching, like they're saying a little prayer. My knees are wide, and I'm bringing my blocks to the outsides of my legs. They're going to support my outer legs so I can rest. See if you can find a way for your blocks to completely support the outsides of your legs so you can let them relax. And draw your shoulders towards each other underneath you. And start to soften your breath. Relax your jaw here. And I'll recommend you try to stay in this resting pose for maybe another 3 or even 5 minutes, and then come out of it. And thanks for trying out this slow flow at home. And we hope you come visit us at Queen Street Yoga sometime soon.